Picture this. Your son or daughter comes to visit on a Sunday afternoon. You make coffee. You sit together at the kitchen table, the same table where you've shared 1,000 meals over the years. It feels good. It feels normal. And then, just as they're putting on their coat to leave, they say something. Maybe it's casual. Maybe it sounds kind. Something like, "Mom, don't you think this house is getting a little too big for you now?" You smile. You wave goodbye from the porch. The car pulls away. But that night, you can't sleep. Something about that sentence sits with you. You replay it. Was it just concern? Was it something else? Should you have said something back? If that feeling sounds familiar, you are not alone. And today, I want to give you the language and the clarity to understand exactly what's happening and what to do about it. I've spent more than 40 years as a licensed psychologist, working with individuals, couples, and families across every stage of life. A significant part of my career has been dedicated to working with seniors and their adult children, helping them navigate some of the most delicate, emotional conversations that families face. And let me tell you something I've seen over and over again in my practice. Most adult children love their parents deeply, genuinely, without question. But love, even real, sincere love, can sometimes express itself in ways that quietly chip away at your independence. And as a senior, you deserve to know the difference between a child who is helping you and a child who, perhaps without even realizing it, is beginning to take over. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 specific things your adult children might say after visiting your home, what the psychology is behind each one, how to tell if it's a warning sign, and most importantly, how to respond with calm, confidence, and dignity. Stay with me through the end, because the last section contains 5 steps you can take right now to protect yourself. This could be one of the most important conversations you have this year. Let's begin. The first phrase. And it often comes first for a reason. Don't you think this house is getting too big for you now? Or variations of it. This yard must be so much work. Or all these stairs. Are you sure that's okay? On the surface, it sounds like simple, practical concern. And sometimes, it genuinely is. Adult children worry about their parents managing large properties alone. That's normal. That's love. But here's what I want you to understand as a psychologist. This phrase is very often the opening move in a longer conversation that hasn't started yet. Think of it like a test. Your child says it, then watches how you react. If you brush it off, they may let it go. But if you seem uncertain, if you say, "Well, I don't know, maybe you're right," that uncertainty gets filed away. And the next visit, the conversation goes a step further. How do you know if it's becoming a pattern? Ask yourself, has this come up more than once? Does it always seem to connect to a larger suggestion, like moving to a senior community, selling the home, or having someone come in to check on you? Are they asking, or are they telling? When concern turns into a recurring theme, it's no longer just a comment. It's a direction they're trying to move you in. The wise response: you don't need to get defensive. You don't need to argue. Simply respond from a place of security and calm. Something like, "I appreciate you thinking about me. Honestly, I feel very comfortable here. I know this home, I know this neighborhood, and I'm managing just fine. But I hear that you care, and that means a lot." Then, pay attention to what happens next. Does your child accept that answer and move on? Or do they push back, bring up another concern, redirect to a different angle? A child who is genuinely concerned will accept your reassurance. A child who has a different agenda will find a way to keep the conversation going. Your home is not just real estate. It is your history, your comfort, your roots. No one should be able to talk you out of it, especially not casually, over coffee, on a Sunday afternoon. Now, this second phrase is one I want you to pay very careful attention to. Because it is, without question, the most emotionally powerful tool in an adult child's vocabulary. We just want to make sure you're safe. How do you argue with that? You can't. Nobody wants to be unsafe. The word safety wraps itself around concern and love and responsibility all at once, and it makes the person on the receiving end feel like they would be irrational, even reckless, to push back. That is exactly why it's used so often. And that is exactly why you need to understand it. Let me be very clear. Sometimes this is 100% genuine. A child who says this after you mention you fell last winter, or after they notice the front steps are getting slippery, that is real care. Listen to it. Take it seriously. But here's the pattern to watch for. When safety becomes a catch-all phrase used to justify any number of control-oriented suggestions. We worry about your safety, so maybe we should have access to your location. For safety reasons, maybe you shouldn't be driving after dark. We just want to make sure you're safe, so perhaps we should be on your bank account. Do you see how the word safety can be attached to almost anything? It becomes a master key, one word that unlocks the door to a dozen different forms of oversight. The psychological term for this is called safety justification. It's not always deliberate or manipulative. Often, adult children genuinely believe they are being helpful. But the effect on you, the recipient, can be a slow, steady erosion of your confidence in your own judgment. The wise response: first, acknowledge the love behind it. Then, redirect with facts. I know you worry, and I love you for it. Let me show you what I've already done to stay safe. Then show them. Walk them through the grab bars in the bathroom, the good lighting in the hallway, your medical alert bracelet, your doctor's phone number on the fridge, your emergency contact list. When you come to a safety conversation with concrete evidence, it shifts the dynamic. You are no longer someone who needs to be protected. You are someone who has already taken care of themselves. That's a very different conversation. I want you to lean in for this one. Because out of all 6 phrases we're covering today, this is the one that carries the most risk. Maybe it's time to let us help manage your finances. Or, we just want to make sure your bills are being paid properly. Or, have you thought about who's going to handle things if something happens to you? Now, there are circumstances where this conversation is entirely appropriate. If you are experiencing significant cognitive decline, if you've been the victim of financial fraud, if you have asked for help. In those cases, involving a trusted family member in your finances can be a genuine act of love and protection. But outside of those circumstances, this conversation should stop you in your tracks. Here's why. Financial control is the single most common form of elder abuse in the United States. And the vast majority of financial elder abuse, studies suggest more than 60%, is committed not by strangers, but by family members. Sons, daughters, grandchildren, nieces and nephews. I am not telling you this to make you distrust your children. I am telling you this because the data demands that you be informed. The warning signs to watch for. Has your child started asking about your will more frequently than feels natural? Have they mentioned power of attorney, even though you are in perfectly good health and sound mind? Have they asked for access to your bank accounts, your passwords, your investment statements? Are they framing these requests as just in case or for your protection? These are not automatic red flags, but they are questions you should be asking yourself. The wise response. Here is the single most important thing I can tell you. Never make a financial decision under family pressure without first speaking to a professional you have chosen independently. A financial advisor, an elder law attorney, your bank's trust department, someone who has no relationship to your family and no interest in the outcome of your choices. And when your child raises this topic, you have every right to say, I appreciate that you're thinking about this. I have a financial advisor I trust, and I will bring any major decisions to them first. When the time comes that I need more help, I'll let you know. That is not a rejection. That is wisdom. Your money represents your lifetime of work, your security, your choices. You have every right to protect it, including from the people you love. This one is subtle, and it can be the hardest to recognize because it comes wrapped in what sounds like pure concern. You seem more forgetful lately. Are you okay? I noticed you forgot about our call last Tuesday. Do you remember what you told me last month? You don't? When someone you love expresses concern about your memory, the natural response is to feel worried, to start second-guessing yourself, to wonder, are they right? Am I slipping? And that self-doubt, that moment of vulnerability, is precisely where this phrase can do the most damage. In psychology, we have a term for what can happen in these interactions: gaslighting. In its mild form, it simply means someone is causing you to question your own perception of reality. It doesn't have to be intentional. But the effect is the same. You start to trust your own mind a little less. And when you trust your mind less, you rely more on the person who raised the question. Do you see the dynamic that creates? Again, context matters enormously. If you genuinely have noticed changes in your own memory, or if your doctor has expressed concern, then a caring child raising this topic is a gift. Take it seriously. Get evaluated. But if you are sharp, engaged, and fully capable, and yet someone keeps bringing up forgetfulness based on isolated normal incidents, that is a pattern worth examining. We all forget things. That is not dementia. That is being human. Forgetting where you put your keys is not the same as forgetting what keys are for. The wise response, the single most powerful tool you have here, is documentation. Get a cognitive screening done, not because you're worried, but because having a clean bill of cognitive health from your physician is the clearest, most unassailable evidence you can hold in your hands. Then, when the subject comes up, you can say with complete confidence, "That's kind of you to ask. Actually, I just had my full cognitive evaluation last month. Everything came back excellent. I'll tell you, I think we all have those moments, don't you?" Warm, confident, documented. That is your armor. By the time you hear this phrase, something has already shifted in the dynamic. Because this is no longer a question. This is an action. We found this really wonderful senior community. I already talked to them, and they have a tour available next Saturday. We put your name on the waiting list, just in case. Notice the escalation. You went from, "Don't you think this house is too big?" which was a suggestion, to, "We already have a tour scheduled," which is a plan. A plan that was made without you. I want to say something important here. Senior living communities are not the enemy. For many people at the right time, in the right circumstances, they are wonderful. They offer community, safety, convenience, and care. If and when you choose one, that can be a beautiful chapter of life. The key words there are, if and when you choose. The problem is not the destination. The problem is being driven there without being asked. When adult children begin researching and scheduling and planning around you, rather than with you, it represents a fundamental shift in how they see you. You have gone from a decision maker to a decision that needs to be made. The warning signs: did they research this community without mentioning it to you first? Is the tour already booked? Were you told about this, or were you consulted about it? There is a world of difference between "Mom, I found some information about a few places. Would you like to look at them together?" and "We already signed you up for a tour Saturday morning." The wise response: you don't need to refuse. You don't need to fight. But you do need to reclaim your timeline. I'm open to exploring options in my own time, but this is my decision, and I'll make it when I'm ready, not on someone else's schedule. I'll let you know when, and if, I'm interested in learning more. Then hold that line. Kindly, firmly, repeatedly, if necessary. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a person to be respected. And now we come to the sixth phrase, the one that, in my 40 years of practice, I have seen cause the deepest, most lasting doubt in seniors. We worry about you being alone all the time. This phrase cuts differently because it touches something real. Loneliness in older adults is a genuine concern. I don't want to minimize that. The research is clear. Social isolation can affect our physical health, our cognitive function, our overall well-being. Connection matters. Community matters. But there is a crucial distinction between loneliness and solitude. Between being alone and being isolated, many seniors deeply value time on their own. Time with their routines. Time in their garden, with their books, with their thoughts. That is not a problem. That is a life. When your child says you're alone all the time, ask yourself, is that actually true? Or does it reflect their discomfort with the idea of you being alone rather than your own experience of it? The pattern to watch for. This phrase is often used to justify increased surveillance, more check-in calls, more pop-in visits, more pressure to move somewhere with people around. It can also be used to make you feel guilty for enjoying your own company or for having a social life that doesn't center on your children. And in some cases, subtle, loving, well-meaning cases, it creates a dependence that wasn't there before. You start to feel like you should be lonely. Like being okay on your own is somehow suspicious. The wise response, the antidote to this is a rich, visible, independent social life. Friends, neighbors, a book club, a church group, a volunteer organization, a fitness class, a community garden. The more people you are genuinely connected to outside your immediate family, the less vulnerable you are to this particular narrative. And when your child says they worry about you being alone, you can say, with a smile, I love you for caring. And honestly, my calendar is so full, I don't know how you'd fit me in. Let me tell you about my week. Then tell them. In detail. Because that story, that full, engaged, independent life, is your best defense. And more than that, it's the life you deserve to be living. Now I want to give you something you can use immediately. Something simple enough to remember in the moment, when a conversation catches you off guard. I call it the 3-question test. Whenever your adult child says something that makes you feel uneasy, whether it's one of the 6 phrases we covered today or something else entirely, pause and ask yourself these 3 questions. Question 1. Is this coming from love or from control? Love respects your answer. Love accepts a no thank you without escalating. Control doesn't. Control finds a new angle, a new argument, a new concern. Love says, I hear you. Control says, but have you really thought about? Question 2. Am I being asked or am I being told? There is a fundamental difference between a child who says, what do you think about? And a child who says, we've decided that. One invites you into the conversation. The other presents you with a conclusion and expects compliance. You are an adult. You are owed the first. You are not obligated to accept the second. Question 3. If I say yes to this, am I gaining something or giving something up? Some decisions expand your life. Some decisions contract it. Before you agree to anything, a move, a financial arrangement, a new level of involvement from your children, ask yourself honestly, after this, will I have more freedom and dignity or less? If the answer is less, slow down. Ask more questions. Get outside advice. Take your time. These 3 questions won't give you every answer, but they will give you something invaluable, a moment of clarity in an emotional conversation. And that moment is often all you need. Before we close, I want to leave you with 5 concrete steps you can take, starting this week, to protect your independence and your peace of mind. Step 1. Stay current with your medical care. See your doctor regularly. Get your cognitive screening. Get your annual physical. Keep those records. Your health documentation is not just good practice, it is evidence of your capability. Having a clean bill of health from your physician is one of the most powerful things you can hold in your hands. Step 2. Build your independent professional team. A doctor you chose. A financial advisor you chose. An elder law attorney you chose. These are professionals who work for you, not for your family, not for anyone else. Make sure they exist before you need them. Step 3. Nurture your independent social life. Friends, neighbors, community groups, faith communities, hobby clubs. These connections are not just good for your well-being. They are part of your infrastructure of independence. The more people in your life who know you and care about you, the less vulnerable you are to isolation-based pressure. Step 4. Have the direct conversation. If you've noticed these patterns in your own family, consider addressing them directly. Not with accusation, but with clarity. I want us to talk about how we make decisions together. I am still fully capable of managing my own life, and I need you to trust that. I want your love and your input, but the final decisions are mine. That conversation is hard, but it is far easier than the alternative. Step 5. Trust yourself. You have lived more than 6 decades. You have raised families, built careers, navigated crises, survived losses, and emerged with wisdom that cannot be taught in any classroom. Your judgment is not declining simply because you are getting older. Trust it. I want to leave you with this. Your home is yours. Your finances are yours. Your decisions are yours. Your life, this beautiful, hard-won, experience-rich life, is yours. The love of your children is one of the greatest gifts life can offer. Embrace it. Cherish it. And at the same time, remember, love that respects your independence is more beautiful than love that replaces it. You are not a burden to be managed. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a person, with history, with wisdom, with rights, and with the full capacity to determine what the rest of your life looks like. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 6 phrases have you heard? You might be surprised how many people in this community share your experience. And if you found this helpful, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it. You could be doing them an enormous favor. Subscribe to Strong Elderly Life if you haven't already. We release new videos every week, built specifically for people over 60 who refuse to let age define their limits. Take good care of yourself. You've earned it.